All right, we are up and running. Morning, everyone. Any announcements before we get started? There's nobody new here, but any other announcements?
What I'd like to do is, I don't know, Jeff, if you had gotten my email about the request for the room for the kind of follow up, the second light and tack sharp, because I was looking to give that workshop again on either the 1st or the 8th, I think it is. And I just want to.
Well, Lynn and I have been partnering on figuring out how to do the face-to-face meetings and when to start. We talked about last time we met face-to-face, beginning the meetings at 11:15 instead of 11, because the Women's Fellowship meeting is starting to move out into that space from 10 to 11. And so everyone at Chapel in the Pines is amenable to that. The folks who were gathered when this group met a couple weeks ago were amenable to that. So if that works for everybody, I would suggest we just go ahead with that plan. So we could begin setting up at 11, but there may be the Women's Fellowship group also exiting that space right at 11.
Well, and everybody seemed to be okay with that when we met in person 2 weeks ago. So let's just have that happen.
And if you want to extend past an hour, I think we just do that.
And I think if we start
Well,
at
our
11,
meetings are usually, our meetings are usually an hour and a half, and then Bill wanted to talk about extending maybe 30 minutes after that for anybody that wanted to stick around and ask questions.
I think we can do that.
Yeah, we're already scheduled for an hour and a half in there.
So I'll
Go ahead.
confirm that again. But let's
Okay.
plan on it.
Well, I think everybody in the group is very grateful to the church for allowing us to meet there, and it's worked out well. So,
We're glad too.
okay. And Bill, you want to take over for the tips and tricks?
Yep, it's going to be just something really simple, very quick, because we do have a lot of images here, but our next challenge is street scenes. And just a couple of recommendations that I have for the group is, we've talked about the polarizer filter. If you're doing pictures in the middle of the day, consider bringing your polarizer with you, because if you've got some great image, maybe shooting through near a window or so, you can control the amount of reflection coming off the glass. So it might be, a good filter to just have you tag along or even leave it on if you're shooting in the middle of the day. If you're out in the middle of the day and everything's really bright and, you might see even harsh, shadows and real bright, maybe walls of a building, don't be afraid to take it. Those are the kind of images that can be pretty neat as far as changing the black and white. So, don't always worry about what you think you see in front of you, but you may have an opportunity, because black and white can do some interesting things. And I think Mike's probably done a lot of that with his architecture as well. As far as people, people are taking cell phone pictures out there all the time right now. And people have gotten pretty used to just being in public spaces and not worrying about it. Sometimes maybe with a camera, it looks a little different, but it's really not. So as long as you're out in, a public place, focus on what you're trying to take the image of. Don't look around like you're worrying about everybody, because if they see you looking like you're worrying, they may worry. So just kind of focus on what you're planning to do. And, if you're in a totally public place, you really have the right to take pictures of just about anything. One thing I would stay away from without the parents' consent is children. That gets to be a sensitive issue. But most people that I've ever found, they're actually very good with being okay with it. I was even out in San Francisco area, and I was overlooking this big wall, and the gal was down below, and she wanted a picture of me, and she just yelled up. She goes, "Is it all right if I take your picture?" Yeah, okay. You know, well, very often people are okay with that. And if there's somebody that's in your image that's a kind of an interesting part of your image, let them know what you're doing. Just ask them if it's okay. Yeah, I'm in a photography group. We're doing a challenge of street scenes. Is it okay if I just take this picture? And maybe you offer it to them. If they give you your email, hey, I'll send you a copy. Make it as casual as possible, and they'll make them feel comfortable. Find inspiration. Google. Yeah, you can go out to Google and just put street scenes or street photography. And when that comes up, there's a little tab up there that says images. Press that. You'll see all different kinds of pictures of street photography. Maybe it'll, click something in your head to say, hey, that's interesting. I want to try that. Or go out to Flickr. Flickr's a great place. I mean, you'll, you're going to get images from all over the world, and there's a lot of creative people out there. So, be willing to do that little investigating and try to get some cool ideas. And also, when you're taking images while you're out and about on the streets, think of perspective, where you're taking the picture from. If you're taking all your pictures from the standing position and your eye, think about getting maybe a little lower. Maybe, if you have a great scene and a great street and there's a parking garage, go up a level or two and go look down. Staircases are good for perspective. So just really keep your mind open to all these different opportunities. And what I did is, just before I got on here, I sent out an email to everybody with a couple YouTube videos. And I also included a list of things that I just talked about right now. So it's all on an email going out there. But yeah, don't be shy. Now I know Frank Husking had an issue one time where he was taking a picture of somebody, I think it was food trucks or something, and somebody thought they were in the image, and they actually came up to him and asked what you doing and stuff like that. And he just simply told them what he was doing, and even looked at the image and said, "You're not even in it." So you get the kind of weird guy once in a while, but just diffuse it and move on. Just get out there and do it.
One of the best street photographers I know personally is a guy by the name of Marty Watts, and he lives in Sanford. He shoots everything from the hip, everything. And
Mhm.
his eyes coordinated with where that's going to wind up. And so, okay, Bill, good
Yeah,
tip.
I've often just left the camera on a table somewhere, and I'm talking to somebody, and I go and press the button every once in a while. I mean, yeah, don't force any limitations on yourself.
Yeah, you could even use a remote. Set it up remotely.
Or, as I said in that one meeting, get your cell phone hooked up with, SnapBridge for Nikons or Canon Connects, and you.
Yeah,
do
I
right
checked.
from
My Nikon doesn't work with SnapBridge. I was really disappointed. Anyway,
I'm going to
Move it along.
switch over to photos, and I'm going to change what I was going to do in terms of order.
Without order, there's chaos.
Yeah. Let me get rid of floating control meetings and full screen. I had Larry's up first, but I'm going to skip over and go to Jeff's. And Jeff, this is the first one and we did get through it at the last meeting. And there were some good comments. This is next up. Did not get to this one. Any comments, Jeff, or others? I really like this photo.
Great pick.
What really
Bird adds
does
a lot.
justice is the fact that the sun is behind those clouds and it's not overpowering the scene, it's complementing the scene.
Yeah.
What lens were you using and what setting?
Sorry, I was talking to mute. So this is ISO 100, which is kind of my default setting when I peg ISO. It's f8 and I'm using my variable zoom lens. I hadn't noted what the actual focal length was of it, but it shot at 1/200th of a second. I was doing these handheld because I was looking for a specific point in time. This is going out in the morning when I'm staying with friends on the Florida coast up near Georgia. And I love sunrise on the East Coast and sunset on the West, obviously. It was a cloudy day, somewhat. And so I waited for that moment, and I was shooting a lot. I waited for that moment when the sun was obscured. And what I was trying to get was the sun on the sand and the sun on the near wave. That was really my objective here. And I caught the bird out of the corner of my eye and I just went bam, bam, bam. And I think this was the first bam. And there's not a lot of post-processing here. I did saturate the color just a little bit, not very much. This is very true to what was actually going on.
Beautiful.
So I was able to be just fast enough to, for the most part, freeze the silhouette of the bird, which I love in silhouette, and then slow enough to where I could still, take in some light and have some shadow in those upper clouds.
I think if you'd taken the shot that was the second BAM or the third BAM and that bird had been moved over to the middle, it would have reduced the impact of the photograph. I think it was good that it was where it is.
Yeah, and I wanted to tell you guys, I'm not necessarily a slave to thirds. I like the fact on this one that the photo isn't quite 1/3, 2/3. It isn't quite 50-50. The sun isn't quite on a third. The bird isn't quite on a third. But I like the balance between the location of the sun and the location of the bird, and the bird is moving into the photo, which is what I want.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good photo.
You said one word before, one word that was really important. You waited. You have to have patience. And, that's exactly what you had in an image like this, because sometimes you have to sit around for a while and wait for that moment. This is
Well, the two that we've
good.
looked at, Jeff, I think were the first that you submitted, and there are a couple of others that we'll move through too. I like this shot as well.
And this is another example of me not shooting thirds. I really liked the profile of the pier. And what I did is I waited until the pier blocked the sun and I moved. I shot a couple where the sun was to the right of the pier.
Mm.
And I intentionally moved to where the sun was coming through the pier. I love the way sun will make vertical objects disappear. The light will, it seems to bend around a tree or a post or a pole. And this is another example of that. And what I was trying to do here is I wanted light in the early close waves. You know, I wanted a little of that blue that is tinted with yellow in there. So that's what I was trying to accomplish there. And I didn't even notice the little bird on the left. I tried cropping it out, but I got a little bit of laughter by leaving it in.
I didn't even notice it.
That's something.
Yeah, it's a little found surprise.
Another good shot, Jeff. And this looks like one that reminded me of the
Blotzers.
Mike Blotzer's photograph the other day. Swimming pool.
Yeah, this one's just sitting at the pool with friends and shooting again at ISO 100 at 120th of a second. And I don't know where my camera was focusing. I tried to focus about a third of the way into the image, but it's just an abstract shot.
I think you probably didn't get
That's all
anything in sharp focus because the water was rippling, but it makes it more
Yeah.
abstract to not get everything in focus.
And this was
And
shot
120
at a 1/250th of a second. So I would have had the ability to freeze it. So I think it's a combination of shutter speed and focus.
Yeah, agree. And then the last one of Jeff's is this one. And this one struck me as one like Chuck's been taking, where you can actually get some gauziness of the water moving.
Well, this was after a big pollen fall at the
Okay.
apartment that I rented when we first moved to North Carolina. And the streets were just bright green, bright yellow with pollen. And then we got this big rainstorm. And I liked the river. I just went out there to capture it. And so, you know, this is handheld at a 30th of a second, ISO 100, I think. Or might have been, I didn't record the ISO, and I don't know where the image is anymore. I may have had the ISO ramped up to where it was moving faster because it was only taken at a 30th of a second. But it was taken with my 22 millimeter lens. So what I like about this one is the movement and the triangles. It's cropped just a tiny bit to eliminate a little bit of noise at the top of the image. I shot it wide so that I could crop it. But I like the movement and the triangles in the geometry here.
More and more and more, I seem to be shooting things wider than I used to. And I think that's a good practice in terms of giving you more room to find the picture within the picture, as Graham would say. Well, Jeff, I'm sorry we didn't get to these at the in-person meeting, but hopefully we've helped and given you some good feedback this morning. Appreciate you being with us. And we've turned now to a couple by Larry that were also not presented last time, and he wasn't there last time either. So Anyway, I should say not either, but Larry, you still with us?
Yes. Um, well, I was thinking bridge over troubled waters, but waters aren't troubled. But I was just thinking, yeah, bridge, sure, because I don't know if you can see off to the bottom left, there's water. This was taken at the Duke Gardens. And it just happened to be a day when there weren't many people walking around. And so I got a clear view of the bridge, the Japanese, that's a part of the Japanese garden. I just love that bridge. And I was glad that I could use it at this time. So
Larry, what's to the right of this picture? What
to the right,
yeah, where does the bridge go?
well, it curves and it goes to the other side, which is just a green area. It crosses over that part of the. It's a small lake. I mean, and so it crosses over to the other side of that.
And the reason I ask is that I'm wondering what it would look like if there was more on the right, so that the bridge takes you into the picture. But maybe there was nothing there or something there that you needed to crop out. I don't know, obviously.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess I could have taken both sides of the railing, but it just struck me that I needed water in it
Yeah.
and to make the challenge. So the water part is the one on the lower left.
Any other comments?
And I'm sorry, I don't have I don't know if you can look that up. I don't have that, what I shot it at, because I don't know where those notes are, but.
The only thing that strikes my eye is that maybe this is one of those times, Mike, like you were saying, how you were shooting more things wide. Like if you were close to the bridge, like you were, Larry, and you tried a little bit wider focal length, you might have been able to get a different perspective on the bridge plus the water. That's my only comment. But it's very pleasing to me, especially the contrast of the red against the dark green background.
Isn't that a wonderful color? That red? I love that red.
Yeah, it's an orangey red, I guess. Yeah.
Mostly it's a really cool bridge. I like
Yes.
the picture.
Mm-hmm.
I recognized it right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What time of day was it?
Oh, Helen, it was probably in the afternoon, but not at the optimum time. So, I don't know, about 2:00 perhaps, or.
What I would have guessed. Yep.
Yeah, I
Shadow
guess
down there.
I would have
Midday.
guessed that you still got everything exposed well, even
Yeah.
though it was probably harsh sunlight.
Right. It was a hot day. It was in July, I think.
Mm.
So I was thrilled that there weren't that many people walking around. And I think the reason for that was it was just warm. And I don't know, sometimes the gardens are so crowded, you really can't get a good shot, but I was just lucky.
I look
I
back
have
to see if
never
I had
gotten
any.
a shot.
I look back, Larry, to see if I had any notes from before the last meeting, and I didn't find any. So I may have tossed them. I don't remember. Good shot. And here's Larry's second.
Oh,
So again,
look-
we're at the
wow.
we're at the garden, and when I looked at it at home, I realized that I had caught the dragonfly. It wasn't like that was on
Oh,
purpose.
yeah.
So right there. But so I tried to crop. That's exactly right. I tried to crop it to make it in the focus of the picture. But then I said, well, but the pond looks so nice and murky. I thought that would be better. So I didn't bring it up that close. So the typically the flowers, yeah, it was a good time of the year because the flowers were still blooming on that particular lily pad.
Mike, can you crop that? What if we cropped off some of the right?
Say again, more to the right?
Like that? I
Yeah,
was saying crop off some of the right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking at a tighter image as well. And I know that the
Mhm.
water is important, and if you crop it any, you lose some of the reflection, but that'd been something to experiment with, I think.
Yeah.
And I
Maybe
have to
crop a little
confess
bit
that
more often.
my crops are very much dictated by paper size, so that if I print it, I could fit it into my normal frames, and you get too free form with cropping, and you've got 100 different sizes of prints to
Yeah.
put in frames, and so that's my go-to crop. It's either on 13 by 19 paper or 16 by 24. So I can't get too creative with it, and that may be one reason why I shoot really wide, so that I've got a lot of room to play with the crop. It's a good photo, Larry.
Mhm.
You know what I like about it is that those radial pieces coming from the center at the pond level.
Yeah.
It's too bad you couldn't get the bloom included in the radial part, and which makes me think about, it's too bad you couldn't have gotten overhead over this. And that makes me wonder, has anybody ever fooled around with these extension poles that people use for taking selfies to hold the camera further away? And anybody know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. I've
Yeah.
never used one.
Selfie stick.
Is that what they're called?
Well,
Yeah.
if you're using a phone, yeah, but
Mhm.
you could end up using a tripod and extend your very expensive camera over the water and hope it doesn't take a header.
Exactly.
Well, you
Right. But if
you-
you,
you can in fact buy booms for tripods. Either that, or you could jump up really
boom,
high.
boom.
Or you
The
could
other
do
little
it.
thing could have been
You could do an
the
AJ
other
and
little
use
thing
your
could have been
drone.
maybe a polarizer filter, where maybe that let's see, down where everything comes together to the right, it gets a little reflective. And like
Yeah.
what Tom was saying, maybe with the polarizer, the definition of those vines coming up would have been a little different too.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of opportunities.
Yep.
Mhm.
All right. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate
we're
it.
moving on to photos for today's challenge.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
This is
Very cool.
from Bill. And I still can't figure out where
Beautiful,
the
Bill.
front of that bird is.
Yeah, Frank and I went out to the Carolina Raptor Center out on the other side of Charlotte last week. And what was really difficult with this is that all these birds are inside of a cage. And all the cages, of course, have fencing around it. So what I'm actually doing here is shooting through a cyclone fence
Wow.
and trying to get onto this owl. Now, didn't have the ability to go right up to the fence. So we had to be about 10 feet back before even a fence. And then the birds would be even further behind. So what I had to do is I often use what's called like a group focus where you have your center focus points, but then it allows 8 other spots around it in case you move a little bit or the animal moves a little bit. But I had to put that down to single point focusing because I had to sit out there. This is all handheld, and I had to focus through one of the rungs of the fence, and I had to keep it there because as soon as you move off a little bit or it moves a little bit, you're going to lose focus. It's going to try to focus on the fence and then try to go back to the owl. So
Yeah.
I kept this thing focused right through that fence, and I held it halfway down so that it would lock. And then I just waited for the moment. But in this case, this owl was flying around and it was coming in for a landing. But I kept that focus point, even though it was flying, I didn't move, and I waited for him to come back. And that's how I got him. And this was really a very dark environment. The park itself is nestled within trees. The cages have roofs on them. Yeah. So the light often just is coming from either the fence or a little crack in the roof somewhere. So it was one of those things where you just had to be patient. And it's not the perfect shot because I've lost part of its wings, but there was nothing I was going to be able to do about that. And I was shooting this with my 28 to 300 millimeter Nikon lens. And it was at 300 millimeters because I had to use that longest end so that I could get rid of any of the fence around it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that would be captured. Shot it at 5.6 which was the minimum focal f-stop that I could shoot at aperture. It was 1/640th of a second. And like I said, it was really dark. So my ISO was 10,000.
Oh, wow.
Oh, but you even got the catch light in the owl's eye.
It just happened.
That's I don't see any noise in there at all. That's amazing.
Well,
for
I
the-
ran it through. I have the Topaz products, and I
Now,
was
that
able
would-
to get,
Yeah,
but there wasn't a whole lot of noise anyway. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
on
can-
the original, because yeah.
Even
you
blown,
even crop it like
blown,
that.
yeah, even
Wow.
blown up this far, you can't see any noise.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just love the
And that
taste of
picture-
those of the feathers.
The feather, and
Right,
I
and that picture's-
really like the light.
Yeah,
The dark
and that was so
background.
minimal. It was so minimal, the light that was coming into that cage.
Yeah.
And he must know where people like to take pictures.
Bill, how
But,
far away did you say you were?
Probably from the bird, I'm saying 10, maybe 20 feet.
Wow, great pick.
I really wish I could have gotten right up on that fence. It would have made life a lot easier, but they keep you back so you don't disturb the the birds. But yeah, and this was cropped a bit too, just to take away some of the negative space on the top. But yeah, I mean, I was pretty shocked.
Well, that one's great, but so is this one.
Nice.
I love
Oh,
this.
cool.
What
Yeah,
is
this
it?
this was a crane. He presented a whole lot of other problems. He loved to move around a lot. Again, he was in a fenced area, and this is heavily cropped. I mean, I had pictures from his stomach up, but because of the fencing, you could just see the fence coming through the image. So I had to kind of crop it all the way down to the point where I could get rid of any remnants of the fencing. So I had to give him a portrait shot like this. And again, this was at 300 millimeters. Again, 5.6, because that was my minimum f-stop. And this was a 1/400th of a second. And the ISO was 14,400.
Jeez.
That's amazing.
Well, shoot, I didn't mean to do that just yet. Well, Bill, as good as the other one is, this is National Geographic to me. I really, really like this one.
Yeah.
And what
I'll
I
send it in. You should send
What
it
I
in
kept-
for a contest.
What I kept thinking is the beak of the bird was out of focus.
Mm.
And what I did is I kept going back into some of those topaz to sharpen it. And that's what the beak looked like. None of the masking, anything that I did didn't change that.
Hmm.
So he's kind of has roughage around, his hat and stuff like that. But at the end of his nose, it's just smooth. There's nothing I could do that would bring back 1 ounce of sharpness there. Because I swore it was a little out of focus or so, but it wasn't.
Well, I saw that, Bill, and I thought it was intentional. And it didn't.
Yeah, because the eye seems to be the focus. The
Yeah.
eye and his little tuft on top there.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that radial nature of his mane is really cool.
And Bill,
Yeah, it was yeah.
Bill, before I go on to this next one, let me ask you not to say anything about it until others comment.
Okay.
This one's just another, wow.
I just love the expression on his face, his or her face.
Yeah.
The
I'm
eyes
hungry.
Looks hungry. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I don't know. He looks kind of house cattish to me. His eyes look kind of like a soft. He looks gentle there.
Yeah. Until he
Yeah, that's
eats
how he
you.
lures you in.
Yeah, not showing any teeth.
Well, and one of the things that I know I've said this before, but a lot of portrait stuff has the far ear out of focus, and this one is that way. So I like the photo. I don't think Bill likes it as much. That's why I asked him to be quiet. Bill?
Yeah, I actually sent this one in to say, what's wrong with this image? Where was the mistake that I made? Because it's evident to me, but if you notice, and if Michael go right on the tip of the nose, that's where the sharpest point is.
Yeah.
But if you look down and it's hair below the nose, it looks a little out of focus. And what you sometimes have to do with wildlife, you have to understand what they do. Now they see us coming, their senses start lighting up. So underneath their nose, that little area where the whiskers are starts moving because they're trying to sense who you are, what's happening. Same thing with the ears and above the forehead. And if I had shot this at a little faster shutter speed, that area below the nose there would have been tack sharp, as sharp as the nose itself. So, this is one of those little nuances where shutter speed and knowing what you're shooting, particularly, the big cat like this, that, he knows you're there, senses are going to happen. You don't really see the movement because we expect big movements, but there's a subtle movements that just show up, because I shot this at 1/160th of a second. Now, if I had shot it at 1/320th or 1/640th, that would have all been sharp. I know it's minute and things like that, but it's a teaching moment to me that I understand that I have to shoot any kind of wildlife a little faster than I think.
Well, and I think I know too. I use this analogy that in public speaking, you tell people to not apologize for anything at the beginning of a talk because it'll just draw their attention to it. The things you can see, other people may not see at all. This was, despite what you just said, Bill. This is a wow photograph for me as well. And having done some work, volunteer work, until COVID out at the tiger risk or the the tiger rescue outside of Pittsburgh.
I think that it's now they call it a predator rescue or something like that, don't they? But I know where you're talking. I go right by there all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, that may be a subtitle. I'm not real sure, Chuck, but
Oh,
they identify smells for the cats, and they put the smell in a spray bottle and get close to the enclosure and spray it, and that'll bring the cats right up to the fence. So they're very, very particular about smells, but respondent to some. All right, 3 good ones, Bill. Really good ones. And we're going on to Lynn.
So
cool.
this is in Greenland, and my longest lens that I had was 200. So, and this was on a moving ship, and it's highly cropped. So anyway, it's just proof that I saw a polar bear. That's about it.
Well, there's a second one of this.
Yeah.
I think this
So
crop.
that looks like,
this crop works better for me.
yeah.
Yeah, I like
It
that
looks
too.
like there's are ribs showing, but they're not.
Mm.
Good. Good.
Anyway, it was fun
Wow.
to see.
Yeah, this one is good because you have a transition from the water to the rock to the bear.
Hmm.
We later
Shows
saw,
more context.
yeah, we later saw one that was too far away to photograph that was eating a seal.
Oh,
So
geez.
they're hunting this time of year.
Yeah.
So
Well, I asked
what
Lynn
was
if I
your
could
shutter speed? What was your shutter speed here?
Oh gosh, I have no idea.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I should have looked all that up.
because I know with the motion of the boat and the vibration of the motor and all, it was probably hard to get.
I think I had it set
Clarity.
on, I know I had it set on F22, trying to give it every chance to have everything in focus. I do know it, and I had on auto ISO, so I don't know what the ISO wound up being. But it was handheld. I mean, I just didn't have the right equipment. But anyway, it's a picture of a bear. So
Well,
I asked Lynn's permission to
Like-
play with it a little bit, and that's what I did. Basically, I just changed the crop, but used the Topaz sharpening program, and I thank Bill for teaching me how to use selective sharpening, and I just sharpened the bear.
Mhm.
so go back to the other one.
See if I can do this.
Mhm.
See if you can see that what sharpening did
Mhm.
to it. That's
Yeah,
the first one. That's the second one. And it did pop it out a little bit more.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, the lesson there is you need a long lens if you're going to take pictures of things far away. So,
well, it's still an effective picture,
Oh,
regardless.
I like
The
it.
the contrast of that snow white bear against those rocks.
yeah.
It may be more effective that you didn't in this case.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of wildlife to be found out there. Some people that took longer hikes higher up in the hills saw Arctic hares, which are really cute. They have
Oh, wow.
little black tips on their ears,
Huh.
but I wasn't there to see them. And the Arctic fox you never see. So anyway, not a lot of bird life either.
Well, the one you posted this morning, Lynn, is evidence that you did get some really, really good frame shots.
Oh, I do have some good pictures, but this this isn't at the top of the list. So
Yeah.
I'll share some of the others
Yeah.
on Facebook.
And I would kind of recommend, if possible, not to go as high as 22.
Not
You know,
to,
maybe, yeah. There's a certain point where it can cause your shutter speed to start going too low, or your ISO going too high, where it causes the image to denigrate a little bit.
huh?
So because what I do is I never go, I think mine goes up to like 32 or something like that, but I never go above 16. Now, when I do like to use the higher numbers is if there's something like in the woods and there's the sun and you want starburst to come out,
Right,
because that's where it's good, because it's actually causing a problem in your lens that it creates the starburst.
yeah,
So in that case, it's good, but I try to keep it to, in most images that I try to take is between 8 and 16 if I'm looking for a good depth of field, because there's a point where other adjustments change that it can hurt the image more than help it.
yeah.
If you
Oh, this
really
was the
want
old
to,
time.
if you really want to nuance it, there's a website, dxo.com, I think,
Yep.
but DxO, that is an evaluator of cameras and lenses. And if you go to the lens you're using, it will tell you what the sweet spots are for that lens.
Oh,
So, f22 on some lenses might not be as good as f22 on some other cameras, but DxO is the website. But good
the
shots.
really hard,
Glad you
yeah,
had a good
the really
trip.
hard thing. Yeah, the really hard thing was trying to take pictures of the northern lights. So anyway,
We'll see
Okay,
some
One
of those.
thing would be, yeah, one thing would be nice for those of us that aren't on Facebook, Flickr, putting pictures up on
okay,
Flickr.
I'll have to start doing that.
That would help me.
Okay,
Yeah, and
I want to see them.
you'll get, if you get into Flickr and start posting to groups, I mean, some photographs wind up in 50, 60 more groups, and you'll see your numbers of views and number of comments just jump up the more groups you put a photograph in. I think there's
well, I've
something
never
like
done
2
that, so I'll
million
try.
groups on 2 million groups on Flickr.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Well,
And
I'm on my-
Chatham InFocus is one of the groups, and we need to be adding to that. I think
Yep.
Bill's about the only one that does.
Yeah, I need to get back. I haven't posted anything on Flickr in a long time. It's kind of just let it go.
yeah.
Okay, I will do it.
All right,
Thanks.
Sorry, Chuck.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
this is I too am limited by equipment. And so that a couple images that I submitted are both like 200% magnified. So this little guy is just, it's my backyard, and I know it's kind of like the cardinal rule to avoid a boring picture is to not shoot them at a feeding station. But I tried to get a couple of hummingbird pictures of them roosting as they were waiting to come in, but it was difficult to get a decent exposure because of having a 200 millimeter lens is my biggest lens that I have. And I even checked with Southeastern Camera to see if I could rent a longer lens for the challenge, and they didn't have anything that worked with my camera, like in the 400 millimeter range. But anyway, this little guy, and it turned out I was glad I did this because this was just before Ian, maybe the week before Ian came in. After the hurricane, all my hummingbirds are gone. I guess they got blown away. And
Don't say that.
I know that happens. They often, use a storm to migrate. But so this is a ISO of 400. I was trying to keep it as low as possible because I knew I was going to be blowing it up a lot. And it's a 200 millimeter, but with my crop sensor, it makes it like a 300 millimeter for a full frame. And the aperture is 5.6, and the speed was 1/800th. And the other interesting thing, I didn't quite get his eye in focus. It looks to me like his tail feathers are probably the keenest focus, but I did like the texture of the feathers, and I was looking at a hummingbird. It was one of the Peterson guides, I think, and I was just trying to identify which was this, what species it is, and it may be a female ruby-throated, possibly, but then I was thinking, well, it's got to be a hybrid, maybe, because the tail feathers of a ruby-throated are not white like this one, and they have straight bills, and this one's got a curve, so it could be a hybrid. But anyway, that was just a little bit interesting to me.
And Chuck, two things. In terms of what kind of bird it is, on Flickr, there is a blank identification group for everything. For birds, for shells, for reptiles.
Oh, good to know. Yeah. So you can post something and ask for.
Just do a search for hummingbird identification group. The other thing is, in terms, you have a Nikon, right?
Yeah.
Teleconverters. Teleconverters are light. You can carry one with a regular lens and not have two big lenses. They degrade quality a little bit. They will cause you to lose a step or two shutter speed wise, but that's a good alternative to having an extra long lens. You can get a 1.4 or 1.7, and the bigger they get, the worse they are. But you put a 1.4 teleconverter on your 200 millimeter with a crop sensor, and you're up to 400 or more millimeters without doing the math other than in my head.
Yeah, I may need to try it, because wildlife photography is probably not in my wheelhouse. So I don't know if I want to invest in a really long lens. The other thing that maybe I could use a really long lens for would, what I would like to do someday is capture some really cool, like, moon images where the huge moon is hovering over some interesting, landscape feature. And but otherwise, I probably am more interested in other types of photography where the long lens doesn't come into play. So anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, Chuck, when you have something to come up, let me know. Like what Mike was saying about the teleconverters. I mean, I have a bunch of them laying around here, 1.4, the 2, the 3. And since you have a Nikon and it's a crop sensor, I have a 28 to 300 lens, which would bring your long end out to 450 millimeters.
Yeah, another 100 onto my current one. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to try something sometime, just ask.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Thank you.
Something that I really like about this photograph is the background, the color and the texture in the bokeh.
Yeah,
that's. I think that. Exactly. Thanks. I like that too. Yeah. I was close to him. I mean, I was only probably 10 feet away.
How did you do that?
Well, I just, had it on my 200 millimeter of my zoom, which is 55 to 200. And I just was sitting on the deck, and because they're of course very tuned into where you are. At least my hummingbirds are kind of shy, and I just sat there for a long time, and also of course had it on because it was going to be handheld, so I adjusted the settings accordingly, and I also had it on a high repetition, a continuous, so I could take several shots, and so that's how I did it. I just like we were saying, I just waited. I took several shots and waited, and I used the the technology of the multiple triggers, to.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, Chuck, the thing about telephoto lenses is the longer the lens, the shallower the depth of field at any given f-stop. And the fact that you had a long lens on, that helped you get the bokeh as well, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I have used the long lens in other cases, like maybe photographing flowers in a garden to get that nice bokeh using
Yeah.
that same 200. Yeah.
This is Chuck as well.
This
Love the
this is a
reflection.
killdeer. I like to go shoot at just for convenience at Town Lake Park, and it's actually changing quite a bit. It used to be that reservoir used to be more full, and it's really becoming more marsh-like. It was intentional. They were supposed to have let the Robeson Creek convert back to a creek and not to a lake or a pond, you know. But anyway, so this was an image I shot. I actually got a couple of good shots of herons and egrets, but I like this one the best, and it's just pushed. I mean, it's not in focus, but I just captured this killdeer flying across the lake, and I just really like the background colors and the texture, and I like the way his wings were extended downward, but and his reflection. I liked all those things. This is ISO of 560. I might have been able to get a cleaner shot if I had like 100 or 200 ISO, which I probably could have used. I think I let it go auto, and that's why it chose 560, because I wouldn't have chosen. That's a weird one to choose, but and the focal length was, again, you know, at my 200, and it was a 5.6 aperture, and it was an 800th of a second for the shutter speed. But yeah, it's just pushed, and it's grainy looking, and it's because I've got it magnified so much. But I just like the composition. So
Still a good shot. Which lake did you say this is?
Town Lake Park in Pittsburgh. It's off of 902. There's two ways to get to it. There's kind of a hidden entrance over on, if you're headed up on what's called Sanford Road, which is 15501, go, you know, south of the town. There's a road that you can get to a little parking area there, and then the main parking area is off of the what's called the 902 bypass, which is on the, I guess that's really the kind of the west side of town, southwest side.
Yeah.
If you know, if you look all the way, the top of 902 is Al's Diner, and then at the bottom is, you know, the that intersection of 902 and 15501. But
It's actually 87. I think.
Yeah,
87. That's
87.
right. You're right. Yeah, I guess it is. It's 87, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just tell your GPS you're going to Sanford.
Yeah.
You know, there's a picture with this one, Chuck, and it doesn't include the bird.
Mhm.
An abstract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a.
That is. Yeah. That's nice.
It looks almost like a, I don't know what the scope is, but like a radio frequencies. I don't know what, but I like
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
But I think you might that the sharpen program in Topaz might bring the bird out a little sharper, but
You know, and I didn't even try to use sharpen in you know, selectively I may go back and try that and see if I can make that bird any cleaner in Essential, you know, Photoshop Essential.
yeah.
And if you want, Chuck, send it my way and I'll just play in a topaz,
Okay, I'll do that, Bill. Yeah.
because it only takes a couple minutes,
Yeah.
maybe even
All
a
right,
hummingbird
Chuck.
too. Just send them both.
Okay.
All right, we're up to Tom.
Ooh, cool.
I've said before, but I've never seen an owl in the wild. I think I have
I've
one.
only seen
around
them
here.
flying.
I've heard it.
I've only seen them flying across the road in front of me when I'm on my bike.
Yeah,
Right.
this is a great shot.
So
Tom.
this is a barred owl. Thank you. This is a barred owl, and it's both of these photographs that I sent in are about 20 or 30 feet outside of our house. So
Cool.
we saw this. Alice saw this barred owl sitting on a branch and went outside and walked up very close to it.
Wow.
And and shot it. It's not. I did a whole lot of selective sharpening on the owl and on the perch, and then I dropped the background out quite a bit. Blurred the background quite a bit.
Yeah, the crop is
Did
great.
all of that. Thank you. That might be thirds. I don't know. I suppose it is probably close. Yeah. So but I did a whole lot of work on that. You know, selecting out the image and selective sharpening because it was not particularly sharp.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm in a very sunny room, so I can't tell. Is this, did you shoot it in black and white or is it?
No, it's color.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's,
I just noticed a couple of things in terms of wildlife. How I noticed how one, you see the next photograph that I put in. This seems like a portrait, and the next photograph seems like actual wildlife. And I was thinking, well, exactly why is that? And I think it has to do with the letting the context and the background have more attention. So the background here is completely dropped out, or I'm not completely dropped out, but diminished. Whereas with the one with the deer, I just didn't. I did some selective sharpening on the three bucks. So yeah, this is $3 again. It's right outside of our house, and we seldom have a buck group come by our house. So even though I like to sleep in, Alice got me up, and went to, took a bunch of pictures out the windows. So I did not go outside. The bucks would obviously.
Yeah, they would
take
have.
off. Yeah. But I just this seems like a wildlife photograph to me. The other one looks like a portrait. I don't know if people want to think in terms of distinction, but that made me think about Lynn's photograph with the polar bear in the cove. I liked it better with the more of the cove shown. It made the polar bear seem more wild. And I don't know whether people agree with that or not, but just something I was thinking about.
Yeah, that's a good observation, Tom.
I really loved the background on the owl photo. That background is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, it turned out well.
And it's, I mean, I happen to be a painter. It's very painterly, enough abstract. You know exactly what it is. So it's there, and it's open to suggestion by the viewer.
Yeah.
It's that ambiguous.
Yeah.
But you know exactly what it is, but in no way does it take away from the point of interest.
Good.
It's a second there.
I think if there was more color in this, it would be the reverse of what Jeff just said. I think that the almost monochrome is what really does it for this.
Well, it's a crepuscular bird, so they happen in gray times. you get to see them in gray times. I've got some technical information. I don't know. We're supposed to put that in. This is ISO 800, and it's shot at 100 millimeters, f9, 1/25 of a second. So, and it's handheld. So, it worked out pretty well. And this one was this is a ISO 6400, f4.9 at an 80th of a second.
Well, I would put I mean, they're both nice photos, Tom, but I would put the owl in the hit parade list.
Thank you. Thank you.
And this one is Bob's.
Is Bob's, yeah. So I shot this on automatic. I'm always afraid whenever I shoot any animals or birds that they're going to fly away or run away. So I did the easy thing and I did automatic. I used a 300 millimeter lens, so that helped. And I liked that there was two of them there, but it was right outside my house. So the only thing I did crop it a little bit, and I wish I had cropped it a little more. And there's some junky things on the top, towards the top right side, but that's what I ended up with at this point. And I would have done some things differently.
Yeah. I think it could have used a little more to the left.
Mhm.
I don't know if you can see. This is one of those, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Oh, okay.
You see that? It's a perfect heart.
Mm.
A few spots that are left on that
Yeah.
lawn. Either that or you've got a big splotch on your lens, Bob.
Something's going on. Yeah, I didn't notice that, but I'll definitely check my lens.
Yeah, I
So,
think it's on the deer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
somebody liked it. They branded it.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah, in your crop, I would have liked to have seen the end of the deer's rump and hock and other foot.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I
In
like,
my haste, I should have taken more pictures. Yeah. The other thing I don't do is I haven't done much of continuous shooting. I wish I had, had a few more shots too.
well, Bob,
With
the exposure.
when you
the
shoot on
exposure is
automatic too,
Go ahead, Bill.
Good.
yeah, when you're shooting on automatic, the focusing part of it's generally going to go towards something that's closest to the lens. And that's why in some of the cases you'll see here is that some of the grass is just a little sharper than the deer.
Right. Right.
Well,
We got to get
and
you
don't-
nailed on that aperture priority and
Well, I usually do that, but I was just afraid the deer were going to run away, and they were close, and I just figured I'm going to do automatic. I took the easy route.
Well, and I think the purpose of the challenges is to get us to take things outside our comfort zone, and you learn something by
Yeah.
doing this.
Yeah.
The exposure is perfect.
Yeah.
The depth of field. I mean, I see Bill's comment, but the background, which would be really distracting if it was in focus, is nicely out of focus. So you stretched your comfort zone a little bit, and we all need to do that.
Yeah,
Very guilty.
I
of it myself.
agree. I agree.
All right, thanks, Bob. These next,
You bet.
These next ones. What follows are from Helen.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I shot this without looking and didn't know until I was editing. I had thought that something had happened to the lizard's head, and I didn't realize he was eating a bug.
He was eating something.
Yeah, I wish Susan Kellerman were here. She'd love this, but I find it gross. But anyway, it was the lizard didn't pay a bit of attention to me because he was paying attention to lunch. So it was an easy shot. I did that one with my iPhone, which turned out to be a 26 millimeter f1.6 ISO 50 and on and on. And Mike, do you have the sharpened version or is that it?
Nope, this is it.
Okay, yeah. Mike sharpened it a little bit for me just to see. Yeah, it's pretty gross. I did not spend a lot of time on that one because I didn't want to look at it.
When I asked Helen
Not that I like bug.
what this is, and is it a
Skink.
the
It's a
skank?
skink.
What is that word?
Blue tail skink.
Skink.
Blue
not
tail
skank,
skink.
Skink.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't tell what the insect is exactly.
Ugh,
That's what Alice was asking. What is that bug?
I think it's the underneath of
What is-
one.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
maybe it's a stink bug, and you got a skink and a stink.
yeah.
Uh, well, the cropping and the composition is great, even though it's kind of a gross in your terms.
I think that's wildlife.
Yep.
Yeah. It's cool.
Yep.
And this one is a knockout.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I was just playing. That's a flower taken behind the inn here this summer, and I just did some playing around in elements and got that. That was taken at 125th, and the bee stayed still. He was having a good time eating also. So, and I don't remember doing any sharpening to that. It just worked really well to take out the background, and it's not overly.
I don't think you could have done anything to sharpen this more. I mean, look at
Yeah.
look at the fuzz on the bee.
Yeah.
The centerpieces of the
Mhm.
flower.
I think I may have done some selective sharpening on the bee, but on the flower, I couldn't figure out how. So I just left that. But this is the type of thing I like to do, is play with the different capabilities of the editing program.
Yeah, this is a good
But
one.
that one was with my Canon.
Good shot, Helen,
Nice pick. Yep.
and
Very
and
nice.
good processing.
Thank you.
All right. We almost started with Larry, and we're going to almost finish with Larry. You still with us, Larry?
Yeah.
Doesn't
He's
look like
muted.
Larry.
Selfie.
muted.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, there's
There you
Larry.
go.
So, okay, so it's a stretch on the wildlife bit, but this meet Primrose. This is Primrose. She was in an apple orchard in Hood River, Oregon. We grandchildren were go out picking apples, and so I saw her there, and I have another picture of me actually walking Primrose in a harness, and she was easy to work with. So now I've walked an alpaca, so I'm very happy about that.
I have never
So-
done that.
It was an experience, but she seemed pretty calm because it's a lot of kids go to this apple orchard. The day we were there was no one there except us because it was during the week. So I just thought, well, that's wildlife and life enough for me. So that's Primrose. I love her eyelashes.
Yeah.
Wow.
The chilled out wildlife image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She looks so comfortable.
Oh, yeah. I mean, usually they're pretty skittish. I have a friend who's got a alpaca farm down in Sanford, and they're pretty skittish sometimes. But
Hmm.
this one's probably so used to humans that I didn't seem to bother her much.
And this one, now
And this one is
don't hog your
this one's
time.
coming up.
Oh,
Right. Now this is the fattest hog I've ever seen. Not that I'm a farmer, but the reason the bottom of her body is so looks like mud is because she was in a mud hole. She was just getting out of her mud hole. Her stomach actually touches the floor. I mean, but it's not her fault because I just noticed two little piglets that were around her. I couldn't get the shot, but obviously they were feeding. So she's lactating. So I got the little piglets around, but this is probably the fattest, ugliest thing I've ever seen, but I'm sure she's sweet.
I like her
Pork
coat.
chops. Think of pork
Yeah.
chops.
Oh, yeah. She's a lot of pork chops.
Big girl.
I just love it, Larry. You can't look at
So-
this and not laugh a little bit.
I know. It's my idea of wildlife. She lives next door to Primrose. They're
Oh.
in
They're
they don't
neighbors.
share the same enclosure, but yeah, this one is kind of she lives with the goats. There's some goats and other things walking around. So yeah. So that's my other wildlife photo.
Pretty
that's
wild.
super.
It's wild, all right.
Well, I love it.
Probably ride her.
We
Yeah.
have two more that are from Frank, and I put these at the end, knowing that we could deal with them otherwise if we didn't have time. But we do have time. And, he can
Wow.
check the video to get comments, and Bill mentioned that they'd gone to the Wildlife Challenge, or no, that's what this is, to the Raptor Center, and that's where this one and the other one that Frank submitted were taken, and he said both of them were with a 200 millimeter at 1/250th f6, 6400 ISO. He cropped it, reduced the background exposure, and increased color saturation, and did some cancellation of noise, some smoothing of noise. You guys got some great shots.
Mhm.
It
I
was
wonder if
under
he
some,
played with the eyes. Are they naturally that color? Bill, are you here still?
yeah, they
Well,
that was the eyes, because I had
Wow.
one of the exact same owl as well, and Frank just lightened it up a little more than I did. I kept him kind of like a little on the darker side, but I like this one.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well,
and
and
you see the light that's coming across its eye. That's just coming through a crack in the roof. Yeah,
Sheesh.
there's no lights inside these cages at all. Whenever you see light and the light just below its claws down there, that was the little light that was just happened to come in from different directions. I mean, it was not one of those places that you go in and just take pictures of the birds. It was work. It was actually constructive work. I learned a lot by, like I think I said, we were handed lemons and we had to make lemonade.
Well, and you can see on this one the fence, but it is
Mhm.
just almost not noticeable, and it's with the blur around the center of the bird's chest, but shooting through that fence and getting this kind of photograph is just amazing. I tried taking some pictures of a neighbor's little league softball game or baseball game, and I fought the fence, and I didn't get anything that was this good through it. But really a
And
nice
just like
shot.
that big cat before that I had, that was through a fence as well.
Yeah.
But it was a challenge, and Frank and I were, passing tips back and forth and trying to figure out how to get a couple good images. I took 158 and I probably got 4 good ones.
Well, I would really urge if you're interested in doing some shots of wildlife, I would really urge you to go out to the tiger rescue. There are fences, but you can get really close to the animals. They have 2 levels of fences, and you can shoot over one, and the other one is still probably no more than, I don't know, 8 feet away. But you can get some fantastic pictures out there too. And
Just looking, go back, can you go back to the other one? Just looking at that, see how that bird's head is framed so that there's light on either side of his ears?
yeah.
That's
Oh
really
yeah,
good
yeah,
composition on that. I just noticed it at the end.
yeah. It is good.
Good.
And that's
Wow.
now I know what the bird looks like.
Wow.
Incredible, incredible bird.
Yeah, that was the same bugger that was in mine too, that we just happened to get at different times. And
Mm.
Amazing.
Very nice.
it was
Yeah,
just a
good
great
work.
experience to see the birds as well, putting aside cameras, just watching them watching us and see what their reactions are and things like that. Just like when I went up to that animal center in Burlington with the big cats. Even beyond the photography end of it, it's just so interesting to see these things. I mean,
Mm.
at least up front and close.
And Bill, at either place, do they have guides?
Uh, the problem up at the Carolina Raptor Center is that sometimes they have these animals out on display, with handlers, but they weren't having it that particular day. So that would have been an opportunity maybe to get some better images by them not being in cages. Up at the animal center, Minnie and I took the tour that allowed up to 3 people to go with it's almost more of a safety officer, but it's one of the volunteers that knows all about the cats as well. And there they allow you to go right up to the cyclone fence that separates you and the animal. And that's where being able to put your lens up against there makes it so much easier, because once you're back 4, 5, 6, 8 feet, it makes it much more difficult. And I think it was about $80 a person for an hour and a half up at the animal center. But to me, it was well worth it, just being that close to big cats like that. It's just, it gives you a whole different perspective, on a personal level.
Yeah, they have guides out at the rescue here too, which is really informative. All right.
So has anybody ever been to the Sylvan Heights Bird Sanctuary?
Yes,
Where-
I have.
It's in
That's-
Scotland. Neck?
Yeah, that is an amazing trip. And you were talking, Bill, about the fences being so close at Sylvan Heights, which is about 2 hours from where I live and a little bit closer to where you guys live, probably. You can go right up to the fence, so you can shoot with the fence disappearing. You know what I'm saying?
So it's
Um,
100 miles from here.
yeah, it's a
That might-
wonderful place. It has incredible birds, and there's just a wonderful group of people. I mean, I love that place. It's in the middle of nowhere.
Maybe we,
but
yeah, it's a 2-hour drive, but maybe we could get a group of people together that would like to go.
What's the name of it again?
Sylvan Heights Bird Sanctuary. It's in Scotland Neck, North Carolina. So it's east of
Just
here.
above Rocky Mount.
Yeah, it's north of Rocky Mount. Yeah,
So
but
it's
I mean,
98 miles away. I've always
Yeah.
wanted to go there, but I don't want to drive there by myself. So if a group would like to get together, that might be fun.
and also they have picnic tables, so you can bring your lunch and have lunch there, and then go around and take as many pictures as you like. It's I got some really neat pictures there, and that surprised
Your
me.
peacock.
But you can get really close. You're right on the fence,
Huh.
so you don't have to stand back like you did, Bill.
Okay.
And in fact, they have, this is very funny. They have little little windows, metal windows that have keys in them. And so you could become a member, and that gives you access to the window. So you can open the door to the window and stick your lens through and take a picture that way. But the guy I was with, he is a member there. But I said, why did you do that? I mean, you could just shoot right through the fence and no one will see it, because you're so close to it. But he liked the idea of it. He sticks a big, whatever 300 millimeter lens through that little door, and he's got a key. See, so
Yeah.
he's a member. But it's a great place. I would recommend it highly.
Well, a good meeting.
Excellent.
Good, thank you.
We got through what, 28 photos today, and hope we didn't rush anybody in doing that. But anyway, next
Thank you.
meeting in 2 weeks
At
at the church
11:15.
at
At 11:15.
11:15.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Great.
Super.
Great. Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
Mike.
oh, and
Thanks, everybody.
the challenge for next time is it's
Streets.
street scenes. So,
Okay.
all right, have a good rest of
Thank
the
you.
week.
Thanks very much.
Too.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you all.
Meeting.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.